सिन्दूरारुणविग्रहा त्रिनयना माणिक्यमौली स्फुरत् तारानायकशेखरा स्मितमुखी मामीनवक्षोरुहा पाणिभ्यामलिपूर्णरत्नचषकम् रक्तोत्पलं बिभ्रतीं सौम्यां रत्नघटस्थरक्तचरणां ध्यायेत् परामम्बिकाम् सान्निपातिकज्वर सततज्वर विषमज्वर ग्रह नक्षत्र दोषाञ्चान्या हर हर काली सर सर गौरी गम विद्ये आले माले काले बन्धे भज भज विद्ये मख मख विद्ये नाशय नाशय पापम् हर हर दुःस्वप्नम् विध्वंसय विध्वंसय विघ्नविनाशिनि रजनी सन्ध्ये मुन्दुभिनादे मानस्तोषे मानसवेगे शङ्खिनी चक्रिणी वज्रिणी गदिनी शूलिनी अपमृत्युविनाशिनी विश्वेश्वरी द्राविडी केशवदैते पशुपति सहिते धीममर्दिनि गमनी कामिनी शबरी विराटी वाचक्री ॐ द्रं 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 ॐ द्रं गुरु गुरु
Namaste and a warm welcome to all our friends who have joined us for this second session of the 24th day of the Global Festival of Yoga. As you all know, we started on 21st June, that is the International Yoga Day, and we had initially planned up to 20th July. But now with the overwhelming response that we are getting and the impressive lineup of the teachers that we are having, we have decided to extend the festival up to 31st July. And today we have with us one of the stellar personalities presenting before us. I now invite Dr. Ananda Bhavanani ji to kindly join us on the screen.
Namaste, Vanakkam, Swagatam, Namaskaram.
Namaste, Bhavanani ji. Thank you very much for joining us.
It's a pleasure to be here and be part of this wonderful event and reaching out to so many in the true spirit of yoga.
Thank you very much. Dr. Bhavnani ji is well known among the yoga community, yet I would like to present him formally. It is just a pleasure to read out his profile. You can just get to know how multifaceted personality he is. Yogacharya Dr. Ananda Balayogi Bhavanani is the director of the Center for Yoga Therapy Education and Research and a professor of yoga therapy at the Balaji Vidyapeeth University, Pondicherry. He is also the chairman of the International Center for Yoga Education and Research at the Ananda Ashram, Pondicherry, India, and Yoganjali Natyalayam, the premier institute of yoga and Carnatic music and Bharatanatyam in Pondicherry. He is the son and successor of the internationally acclaimed yoga team of Yoga Maharshi, Dr. Swami Geetananda Giri Guru Maharaj, and Yogacharini Kalaimamani Ammaji, Srimati Meenakshi Devi Bhavanani. So we are really blessed to have him, and also blessed because he brings in the blessings of his teachers and his parents along with him. He is also a gold medalist in medical studies and with postgraduate diplomas in both family health as well as in yoga, and the advanced diploma in yoga under his illustrious parents in 1991 to 1993. A fellow of the Indian Academy of Yoga, he has authored 23 books, 19 DVDs on yoga, as well as published more than 200 papers, compilations, and abstracts on yoga, yoga research in national and international journals. I would really like to add to say about the generosity with which Dr. Bhavanani shares. None of his publications are made available for cost. They are all available on various platforms for free. Any seeker, any researcher can make use of it. His any presentation, his talks, he'll be the first one to share on all the platforms. His generosity is something really amazing. I need to tell, from the beginning of the lockdown, I think from 29th of March, he started giving lessons, meditations on online, and today he completes 108th session. So 108 is a complete cycle, and we are really fortunate to have him on the very day when he completes 108 days of teaching. His literary works have more than 1,450 citations. I want you to note this, has more than 1,450 citations with an H index of 19 and I-10 index of 33. These indexes, H index and I-10 index, are something which really marks the high caliber of the paper that gets published. In addition, he is a classical Indian vocalist, percussionist, music composer, and choreographer of Indian classical dance. So he's all these beautiful gifts packaged into one called Dr. Ananda Balayogi Bhavanani. And then he's also an honorary international advisor to the International Yoga Association of Yoga Therapists, the Australian Association of Yoga Therapists, and the World Yoga Foundation and Geetananda Yoga Associations worldwide. And in addition to this, he's also the director of the Standing Publicity, Publication, and PR Committee of Indian Yoga Association. And I'd like to mention at this point, we are very grateful to Indian Yoga Association, who are also one of the organizing partners of this event that we have started. So with this brief introduction, I will not stand in between you and Dr. Bhavanani ji. You get to have the taste of what he's going to share with us. And I now request him to continue. And I would also like to mention all our participants that for whatever questions you might have, kindly present it in the Q&A box, which we'll take up at the end of the session. And all the other comments and any responses you want to share, you can put it in the chat box. So with this, over to you, Dr. Bhavanani ji.
Hey, and thank you so much, dear Vinay Chandra ji, for the very kind words of introduction. For me, I always consider that we are an eternal student of yoga, and we are always an eternal sevaka, someone who serves the cause of yoga. So we are a Nitya Yoga Sadhaka and a Nitya Yoga Sevaka. And the fact that we become a teacher, we start to guide others, we become a mentor to others, I think it just adds on to the responsibility rather than anything else. I would like to take this opportunity to thank Indica for this wonderful opportunity, an opportunity to be with all of you and today share thoughts on a topic that is very close to my heart, the topic which is a topic on yoga therapy, yoga chikitsa, and how we need to distinguish the practice of yoga as a therapy, that is yoga chikitsa, from what I have coined the term yogopathy. And hopefully by the end of this talk, you will understand why I have come to this conclusion and why I share this. I start with my gratitude, my respects to the Guru Parampara, Vandeham Guru Paramparam, because without their blessings, I would not be anything. Whatever I am today is totally just their grace and nothing else. Om Tadparamparaya Vidmahe Jnanalingeshwaraya Dhimahi Tanno Guruh Prachodayate. Om Yoga Maharshi Dr. Swami Geetananda Giri Guru Maharaj Ki Jai. Today, I am representing our Sri Balaji Vidyapeeth, a deemed to be university accredited with the A grade by NAC and one of the top 100 universities of India for the last 5 years in the national institutional rankings. It is a very innovative health sciences university where we have a full-fledged Center for Yoga Therapy, Education and Research, CITER, that is functioning for the past decade. And here, through CITER, there is an integration happening between yoga therapy and modern medicine. And our focus is salutogenesis. Now, for most, that term will be new and I'm going to come to it in a moment. Here we are bridging the experiential wisdom of yoga with the empirical modern medical science. Yoga is often found in physical and sports departments of universities, but here since 2010, we have it in a medical institution that has enabled us to enhance the quality of life in more than 70,000 participants. We are educating future yoga therapists through certificate programs, postgraduate diplomas, MPhil, and even a PhD in yoga therapy. We have been creating awareness amongst the medical, dental, nursing students and professionals. And every student of our university here, they get exposed to yoga as part of their training, whether it be in medicine, dentistry, nursing, or the allied health sciences. And our research has resulted in 110 publications, 9 CMEs, international seminars, and every year the IDY celebrations. Our focus is salutogenesis, which is moving from pathogenesis, a focus on disease, towards salutogenesis, a focus on health. The word pathogenesis, genesis means to give birth. So patho is disease. What are the factors giving rise to disease is the common focus. But at SBV here, through CITER, we are focusing on health, the salutare. And that is where, in Latin, the word salus, which means health, and Greek genesis, which is source, in combination, what are the sources of health? This has as the heart of salutogenesis a sense of coherence, which is a pervasive, long-lasting and dynamic feeling of confidence that one's internal and external environments are predictable and that there is high probability that things will work out as well as can be expected. Antonovsky, who is considered the father of salutogenesis, has propounded this concept and it came into many fields of human endeavor, but somehow modern medicine didn't really take cognizance of it, which in the last few years has been happening in a much more positive way. The sense of coherence has strong positive correlations to perceived health, mental health, and quality of life. This sense of coherence has 3 components. The first component is that of cognition, that my world is understandable. the fact that my world is comprehensible, I can understand it. The second one is a coping skill. My world is manageable. And the third one is the motivational aspect. My world has meaning. So when someone is manifesting the sense of coherence, that is the heart of salatogenesis, they feel that their world is understandable, manageable, and has meaning. So how does this contrast with pathogenesis? Pathogenesis is looking at what causes diseases. It's about avoiding problems. It is usually reactive. But salatogenesis is looking at what causes health. How can we reach our potential? And it is proactive. We want the presence of health for gain and growth, and we discover how to live life fully. So if you look at this continuum, you can see how most people are stuck around here, and they start to go down this negative side, which is where the signs, symptoms, disability, and premature death occur, which is where most of the treatment paradigm is being shared. However, the wellness paradigm shifts into this high level of wellness, what is called positive and promotive health, through awareness, education, and growth. And this is where yoga as a therapy comes in, because it helps us move towards that part of the spectrum, that part of the continuum, which is wellness rather than illness. I must remind us that it doesn't matter how many resources we have. If we don't know how to use them, it will never be enough. And here's this person, all he needs is one ladder. And yet he has so many ladders but doesn't know how to use them. This is the problem in modern yoga. We have a lot of teachers, we have a lot of teachings, we have a lot of techniques, but people are more like this, because as Maharishi Patanjali reminds us, Eka Tattva Abhyasa, you just need one principle, and if you work on it, you can get where you need to get. What are the qualities that a competent yoga therapist needs? Well, I would say intelligence and empathy, both the heart and the head should be working together. We should be willing to share. The highest level of humanity to me is someone who can care and share, which is why for the last 108 days I've been saying sharing is caring. Because when we share, that sharing is an extension of the heart center. Our heart center extends into the hands, and you share. You express your care through the action, which is called kara, and the hand, which is also called kara. We need to have humility and understand our limitations, realize we are not perfect, and be willing to embark on a continuously expanding learning curve. The day we stop learning is the day we stop living. And the big no sign is that big, bloated, fat ego that blocks everything else out of our perspective. When we talk about yoga and yoga therapy, we need to understand that yoga therapy, it is nesting inside the larger yoga and is therefore neither separate nor greater than yoga. It is not separate from yoga nor greater than yoga. And a beautiful, I would say, path-breaking article by a beautiful team of Melissa, Matthew Taylor, Amy Wheeler, and myself. We published this article last year. And anybody who wants it, you email me and I will share it. It is a beautiful article where we have tried to explain yoga and yoga therapy are not different. There are thin demarcations, but there are no hard and fast walls, because yoga therapy can never be separate than yoga. It is a very foundational principle we need to keep in mind. You know, even when the WHO talks about health, World Health Organization, they talk about a dynamic state of complete physical, mental, social, and yes, spiritual well-being, and not merely the absence of disease. Many people are not aware that spiritual well-being is part of that bigger definition. But this has already been given to us by Sushruta, the father of surgery, in around 600 BC. That's a long time ago, where he uses a beautiful phrase, Samadosha sama agnischa samadatu malakriya prasanna atma indriya mana swast itya vidiyate. That if we have to have swast, what is swast? It is when you are established in yourself. When you are you, you are healthy. When you are not you, you are not healthy. It is based on a beautiful concept of sama, which means balanced equilibrium, malakriya, which means dynamic elimination, and prasanna, which is tranquil contentment. He says that the dynamic balance of the elements and humors, the dosha, the dhatus, the normal metabolic activity, what is known as the agni, and the efficient elimination, the malakriya, all the toxins need to be eliminated for us to be healthy. And it has to be coupled with a tranquil mind, senses, and atma, the soul. Such a beautiful, holistic, wholesome definition of health, which is a dynamic state of wholesome wellness. Well, you'll say this is a bit utopian. I do accept that. It may be utopian, but it doesn't mean we should stop trying. Because if you try to reach the stars, you'll at least get off the ground. But if you don't aim to even get off the ground, you'll be stuck in the Tamasika mud forever. One of the important concepts of yoga and yoga therapy is the Panchakosha, where we talk about the Annamaya, the physical existence, Pranamaya, the energy existence, Manomaya, the mental, psychological existence, Vijnanamaya, the intellectual existence, and Anandamaya, which is our universal cosmic existence. And people are always trying to say, do these layers go out or they go in? And you have people fighting over this. Well, if you realize that every cell in the body has its own Panchakosha. You'll say, Dr. Ananda, what are you talking about? Yes, every cell has a Panchakosha. And the structural existence of a cell is its Annamaya. The functional mechanisms of the cell are the Pranamaya. The cellular memory is the Manomaya. The intelligent feedback that is there in the cell, it knows how to do, when to do, why to do. That is the Vijnanamaya. And every cell in your body, those trillions of cells are connected to each other. That is the systemic interactivity, which is the Anandamaya. So do not think of the Panchakosha as being someplace out there or in here. The Panchakosha are everywhere at the same time. They are right now all here. Right now, all here. They are now here. That is the most important message. Every cell has these concepts. Similarly, another concept I would like to share is what is called flow, where as your skills are enhancing and the increasing challenges are there, you move from a tamasika state, a dull boredom state, to that beautiful state of flow. Now, many people, they have the skill, they don't have the challenge, they go into boredom and depression. Some people have the challenges, no skill, they go into anxiety. But Lord Krishna, the Yogeshwar in Bhagavad Gita tells us that yoga is karmasu kaushalam, skillful action, where everything you do becomes an act of dexterity. Everything becomes an act, which is a flow. And the concept of us becoming a nimitta, we becoming a tool for the universe. Nimitta bhava is where the flow occurs. We lose ourselves, but we find ourselves. Now my question comes, is modern yoga therapy losing touch with the essence of yoga? Has that unitive spirit of yoga, yujjate anena iti yogaha, is that unitive spirit being misplaced in the blinding maze of modern marketing and dry academic qualifications? Instead of seeking to understand the real cause behind the dukkha, the suffering experienced by our clients, our participants, our care seekers, are we content in simply managing and suppressing the manifest symptoms? And then comes the question, is this really yoga therapy? Yoga aims to help us regain our psychophysiological balance by removing the root cause of the disharmony. And that is why disassociation from the inherent tendency to identify with suffering is what yoga is about. Yogeshwara Krishna, again in the Bhagavad Gita, which is a yoga shastra, tells us, dukkha samyoga viyogam yoga sangitam, that disassociation from the tendency, we go and identify my disease, my problem. And often, when my clients come to me, I ask them, Namaste, who are you? And they say, I'm a diabetic, I'm a cancer patient, I am a asthma patient. I'm like, at least tell me your name. They have identified so much with the disease. Or they start to say, doctor, my diabetes, my heart disease, my cancer. Again, there's that identification. Krishna is telling us the one place where yoga is not union. Yoga is disunion. Huh? Yoga is in this context where don't identify with your suffering. Because identifying with your suffering, with that dukkha, is actually a mal-identification syndrome that is coming from avidya, the root klesha. We must remember yoga therapy, without yoga, it's no longer yoga therapy. And my father, Swami Geetananda Giri, used to, even in those days, say that modern yoga therapy seemed to be Western physiotherapy in Indian clothes. And I think we have to be very careful that yoga therapy retains the yoga in it. Because if yoga is not there, how can you even say it is yoga therapy? Just call it therapy. So yoga has to be retained. What are the causes of disease according to yoga? The primary cause is Dvaitam, which is duality or dichotomy. It is a sense of separation from the universe in which you live. This is where you move from a state of ease, sukham, into disease, which is dukkham. From sukha, you have gone into dukkha because you have stopped knowing who you are and started the mal-identification syndrome. This is why the definition of asana tells us, sthira sukham, where you are established in a state of well-being that is at ease and stable, and you go beyond the dvandvas that are pulling you away, raga and dvesha, tato dvandva anavigata. The other concept of disease causation in yoga is the tridosha, the three humors. So dvadasha prana, the energy flows that are there, the pancha prana, the pancha upaprana, and the two what are called para prana vayus that I have been talking about in my 108 sessions. These energy flows, when they are not working as they should, disease manifests. And this is where we come to one of the most amazing yoga scriptures, the Yoga Vashishta, where sage Vashishta tells Rama, who was a teenage going through teen problems, he was having existential questions at that time. And I like to joke that this is the first recorded counseling session in human history. The sage Vashishta counsels Lord Rama to become himself, that Avatara Purusha. And sage Vashishta talks of Adija and Anadija Vyadi, psychosomatic and somatopsychic. According to my father, Swami Geetananda Giri, Yoga Chikitsa, yoga as a therapy, is the oldest holistic concept and therapy in the world. Because it is a return of the mind that feels separated from the universe in which it exists. That's why the misplaced sense of duality due to avidya is the root cause. Avidya kshetram, that is where everything starts. And the imbalance, the adi, then comes and manifests in the lower part of our existence as vyadi through psychosomatic mechanisms. And depending on our sabbija karma, that is our propensity, and other factors, the manifestation of disease may vary. When my father talked about this, he said the first disease is the sense of duality leading to fear that creates imbalance of mind, leading to disease in the body. Where does it start? That sense of I am different than you. Why do you think you are different than me or I am different than you? Because of ignorance. Anitya, Asuchi, Dukkha, Anatmasu, such a beautiful definition given by Maharishi Patanjali on avidya. And the Brihadaranyaka Upanishad tells us, Bhayam, fear, comes from the sense of Dvaitam, duality. When I think you are different than me, I am scared of you. But when I realize you and me are one and the same, there is no fear. And that is why that duality leads to fear, which triggers the old klesha, abhinivesha, survival instinct, and the whole stress response manifests. If you look at this stress response, you'll see everything is dependent on perceived stress. your major life events, trauma and abuse, environmental stressors, the perceived stress that is again based on individual differences, behavioral responses, that perception of stress leads to the physiological responses. Your body is constantly trying through allostasis to adapt to it. And when the allostatic load becomes that huge elephant sitting on your head, you collapse. And at that point, disease, vyadhi manifests. The whole stress response is triggered by perception of stress. So what does yoga say? Change your perception. Because if I don't perceive you as a threat, I am not stressed. And nothing can stress you unless you let it stress you. That is actually the key message here. So Antonovsky, again, going back to Antonovsky and salitogenesis, the stressor comes into our life. We all have a stressor. The whole world is stressed out by the pandemic of COVID-19, leading to the secondary pandemic of fear psychosis. Now that stressor comes in. Your response to that stressor can take you on a salutogenic pathway towards positive health. This is where stress has become eustress, positive stress that helps you grow. Or if you take the negative approach, pathogenic pathway, the breakdown, and you go down the disease pathway. Basically, how you respond to the stress is going to determine whether that stress helps you become a better you or whether it becomes a worse you. The better you, the worse you, the good wolf and the bad wolf. Which one do you feed? That is the one that becomes stronger. So when we see the stressor, the challenge as an opportunity for transformation. Again, my father used to often say, a nervous breakdown is often an opportunity for a spiritual breakthrough. A breakthrough can happen in the midst of the breakdown. The whole world is broken down right now. We as humanity have the option, the choice to transform ourselves. We need to realize how we have treated this planet. And if we can change our perception, change our attitude, I think we have a chance to go towards a positive humanity, which can be the best version of itself. If we don't learn the lesson after this bad spanking by Mother Nature, well, I don't know how much hope can be there. But hope springs eternal in the breast. And yes, I hope that humanity can change. The Yoga Vashishta, at least 5,000 years ago, talks about this Adija Vyadi. And if you look at this, you will see that the Adi, which is coming from a sense of duality, leads to mental agitations in the Manomaya Kosha. In the Pranamaya Kosha, the flow of the prana through the nadis, it starts to get into an unhealthy pattern. And then in the cellular activity, hypocellular, hypercellular and altered cellular, you have ajiranam, atijiranam, kujiranam, that in the Annamaya leading to the Vyadi. So it all starts from that sense of duality. What is yoga? It is moving from duality to non-duality. It is the retracing our back, way back, home. And if you look at that word, H-O-M-E, the central two letters are O-M, home, sweet home. Once this stress comes in, the psychosomatic disorders from a yogic perspective go through the psychic phase. This is where you are just mentally little agitated, the Vijnanamaya, Manomaya. Then the psychosomatic, where now what is happening, the Manomaya, Pranamaya, then the somatic into the body, and then it becomes organic. Now this organic is not a good organic. This means that your target organs like your kidneys, your eyes, your heart are starting to get damaged. If we can catch people when they are still in the psychic and psychosomatic phases, yoga therapy can offer a potential cure. Once it comes into the somatic and organic, yoga therapy will have to be adjuvant. It will have to be collaborating with other systems as we are doing in our hospital here, where people who have chronic disorders, they are getting the medical management, plus they are getting the adjuvant yoga therapy, and amazing results can come from that beautiful combination. Now, I would like to introduce a concept called NARA, which is psychic disassociation, which was a perspective elucidated by my respected father. And What he used to say is everything that is happening, every accident, every disease, is because we are not in alignment with our own essential nature, which is the Panchakosha. And so the Panchakoshas, when we are not aligned in them, you can see what happens. Is the different koshas are going out of alignment. The mind is not aligned with the body. The intellect and the mind are not aligned with the breath. The breath is not aligned with the mind. And because of this, what is happening is that the body is moving in a different direction than the mind is moving in a different direction than the emotions, then a different direction than where you want to move. And because you are all scattered, you are going into pieces. You are breaking into pieces. And this is why realigning the individual. How do you realign? The body and the mind. The body doesn't like the mind doesn't like the body. They are like a couple who hate each other but have to live in a single bedroom flat during the COVID-19 lockdown. Horrible situation, the mind and body. Who is the negotiator? Who is the marriage counselor to bring them together? Who is the bridge? The breath. Between the Annamaya and the Manomaya, what lies there? Pranamaya. This is why every yoga practice should be done mindfully. Every yoga practice should be done in tune with the breathing. When the body movement and the breath pattern and the mental presence come into the same place, you are realigning that individual. They are moving from that state of Nara where they have malaligned themselves and they are starting to come together, and Nara becomes Narayana. The man, the human being who has fallen into pieces, comes into one piece and attains peace as the divinity that is in human form. Narayana is that form of the divine that has avatars. That is why you have all the avatars of Mahavishnu. Narayana is the divine who comes in human form. But when we are malaligned, we think I'm only the Nara and Nari. We forget that we are ultimately Narayana. Narayana Bhava, Narayana Arpana Bhava, and Nimitta Bhava. These are attitudes where we are working as the divine. We are working as an offering to the divine, and we are working as a tool of the divine. Yoga as a therapy needs to realign the individual, help the body, mind, emotions, all of them align so that that state of oneness occurs, and that produces the state of Sukham. And if that doesn't happen, we keep on having this disassociation, a psychic disassociation that is happening. The Panchaklesha model of Maharishi Patanjali tells us that the root of all suffering, dukkha, is avidya, which is a distorted perception of reality. He says, Tasya hetu avidya. The root cause of all of this is a distorted perception that then leads to a mal-identification syndrome. And so you identify with everything. Avidya is the root cause. Then manifests the other kleshas. Avidya kshetram uttaresham prasupta tanu vichinna udaranam, as he tells us. And the kleshas manifest. What do the kleshas do? The reality that is there, that reality gets distorted by the ignorance of avidya, further distorted by the asmita, the ego, and then the likes and dislikes pull it apart and push it and pull it. There is a mad rush of abhinivesha, and by the time it comes out at this end of the spectrum, which is where we are, the reality has been totally distorted. The Kleshas model of Maharishi Patanjali is the best model to understand why we as a human race are such a mess. The distorted perception, the coloring of our vision, so that we have confused everything and we have ended up with a stressed out, nervous wreck. Unless we treat the individual's underlying psychosomatic dissociation, the split that has happened between the individual and the universe, that Dvaitam that has happened, and if we do not address the misconceived sense of self-identity, which is coming from avidya and asmita, we are not practicing yoga chikitsa. You are doing something that looks like yoga, but it is not yoga, it is not yoga chikitsa, unless the root cause is addressed. This is why the yoga therapy models, the Panchakosha model of the Yoga Vashishta, the Chatur Vyuha model, Heya Hetu Hana Upaya that comes from the Yoga Sutra based concepts, the Klesha, the Prana, the Chakra models that are there, and the Kaivalyadama model given by Swami Kuvalananda that talks about cultivating correct psychological attitudes, reconditioning the neuromuscular neuroglandular system, and appropriate diet with encouragement of the Mala Kriya, that is the natural processes of elimination. Tiruvalluvar, the Dravidian saint, in his Tirukural, 1330 verses in 133 chapters, when he talks about disease, he says, Noi nadi, noi mudal nadi, adu tanikkum vai nadi, vaippa chayal. Look for the disease, trace its root cause, understand the remedy, and then mindfully apply it. This is the same as the Vyuha model based on the Yoga Darshana of Maharishi Patanjali. Heya, what are the challenges that the individual is facing? Hetu, what is the cause or what are the causes of those challenges? Hana, what is the goal? Where does this person, where do they need to go, where they can be? And Upaya, what are the tools? Heya, Hetu, Hana, Upaya. This methodology, when you approach, you are looking at the problem, the source of the problem, the solution, and how to get to that solution. We need to be people who address the problem and look for solutions. Most people, they forget the solution and only look and address the problem. These are people who focus on the problem all the time. They will never find a solution. When you start looking for the solution and the tools to master and maintain and attain that solution, that is when it becomes yoga therapy. But what do? We manage and suppress the manifest symptoms using yoga techniques without trying to find and correct the underlying cause. And this I describe as yogopathy. Some of my friends used to say, Yogopati, Ganapati, Dhanapati. I say, yeah, along with all of those patis, you have one more pati. Yogopati is when we are using yoga techniques, but not to work on the root, not on the cause, but just to reduce the symptoms. The word pati comes from suffering. It also means something that is a disease, and it is used to treat disease. It is a pathogenic definition. Whenever you have the word pati, it is pathogenic. You are not looking at salutogenic. Yoga chikitsa, yoga as a therapy must be salutogenic. And that is why yoga chikitsa is based on salutogenesis. Yogopathy is based on pathogenesis. And as yoga therapists, if we do not aim to correct the manifest psychosomatic disassociation and the ignorant, distorted perception of reality, we are not practicing yoga chikitsa. Just giving somebody an asana is not going to solve it. And this is why a yogic 12-point system of diagnosis and health evaluation was postulated by my father. And we are using this in our work. You have to look at the three guna, the three basic qualities of the individual, the three dosha, the three humors, vata, pitta, kapha. What are the vasanas, the psychological tendencies? What is the prana, the energy flows? What is the abhyasa, the personal discipline? What is the jiva karma, the lifestyle? What are the chetana, the quality of thoughts? What is the vacha, quality of speech? What is the ahara, diet and food habits? And what are the viparita buddhi, destructive habits? And jiva vrittis, the individual biorhythms? And what is the sankalpa, the ideals of the individual? All of these need to be assessed if you are to help that individual move from dukkha to sukha. Managing and suppressing manifest symptoms is just as good or bad as modern allopathy. And most doctors are not looking at the emotional, social, spiritual, and psychological issues. Because the concept of psychosomatics is not older than 100 years in modern medicine. Whereas our Yoga Vashishta, 5,000 years ago at least, is talking of psychosomatics. And that is why when yoga therapists just treat the disease without remedying the root, I call it yogopathy. For example, somebody has hypertension and elevated blood pressure. Oh, give them Shavasana to reduce the BP. The BP comes down. You have used Shavasana, BP has come down. But this is symptomatic management. This is yogopathy. This is not yoga therapy or yoga chikitsa. Similarly, the musculoskeletal system, oh, you have lower back pain, I will align your body in this asana, that asana, and set it right. See, we need to understand that is already done by modern doctors, by physiotherapists, by chiropractors, by osteopaths. Where is the real yoga in this? Is it enough if you just work on the body? No. You need to look at what is the primary cause. That heya hetu has to be brought in. This is why we need to leap upstream from a pathogenic orientation to a salutogenic orientation. This is the shift that has to be made in all systems of medicine, and where yoga as a therapy can actually help other systems of medicine to also grow into a more humanistic system of medicine. Modern medicine, once upon a time, was an art with a heart. It then became a science with a brain. And now it is a business that has no heart or head. I'm afraid same thing is happening with modern yoga and yoga therapy. And one has to be careful that yoga and yoga therapy, which are an art and science, do not just get reduced to a mere business model where we lose track of both the heart and the head. How does all of this work? Well, yoga therapy works at body, mind, and spirit, creating healing, reducing suffering, restoring function, and very important, creating community. The principles of yoga therapy include becoming aware of the body, emotions, of mind, improving the dietary habits, relaxing ourselves, letting the breathing be calm and deep, focusing the mind inwardly, improving the flow of the healing prana, fortifying ourselves against the stressor, enhancing self-reliance and self-confidence. This is the empowerment of yoga therapy. Facilitating natural emanation of the waste, malakriya, and self-responsibility for health and happiness. This is why the five-pronged approach of yogic lifestyle looks at healthy physical activities and exercise, achar, healthy thoughts and attitudes, vichar, healthy nourishing food of a sattvika nature, ahar, proper relaxation that enables you to truly relax, vihar, and healthy relationships, vyavahar. Achar, vichar, ahar, vihar, and vyavahar, the five-pronged approach of yoga therapy as lifestyle medicine. And all of this works through what is today called psychoneuroimmunology. We are talking about the stresses, the fear that is coming in the wake of the COVID-19 pandemic. Fear brings down your immune system. Negative emotions bring down your immune system, which is why all the yoga practices, they are strengthening a positive psychoneuroimmunology, where instead of stress coming in and hampering your nervous system, your immune system, and endocrine, you start to have yoga coming in, supporting the nervous system, supporting the endocrine, and supporting the immune function. This comes through the concept of the chakras. The beautiful chakras which could be understood through Einstein's E is equal to mc square, where mass, when it is speeded up to the square of light, becomes energy. In yoga, what is that energy? That energy, that speed of light is the power of the mind. We have forgotten how powerful the human mind is. And when you focus your mind, a mind that is sarvartha, scattered mind, becomes ekagratayo, becomes one-pointed. A mind that is dull, scattered, and always distracted, mood, shipta, vikshipta, becomes ekagrata, one-pointed, and starts to go beyond the chitta vrittis, transcend the chitta vrittis into the state of nirodha, a controlled mind, a mind that is in charge of itself. This is why the work on the chakras is so important in yoga and yoga therapy, to enhance our connection with our own energy body. Coming back to the definition of health in WHO, all the four domains, physical, mental, emotional, social, and spiritual, are addressed through the path of Ashtanga of Maharishi Patanjali. The Yama Niyama address social health. Asana Pranayama directly address physical health while addressing other aspects. Pratyahara and Dharana, they address the mental health domain, and Dhyana Samadhi, the spiritual health. So we can say that all the four domains of health that the World Health Organization is talking about are addressed through a comprehensive, integrated practice of the Ashtanga of Maharishi Patanjali, who is giving us such a beautiful path towards becoming the best version of ourselves. We can say that yoga is the defining path that helps us move from bhoga to yoga, from the prayer, which is the pleasure path, to the shreya, the noble path, from dukkha, which is suffering, to sukha, which is ease and wellness, from pathogenesis to salatogenesis, from disease to ease, from illness to wellness, from devolution to evolution, from disassociation to union, and from dvaitam or duality to advaitam or oneness. All of this is enabled, empowered in the individual by the practice of yoga and the application of yoga as a therapy, yoga chikitsa. To conclude this, I would like to share with you some final words. Yogopathy, to me, is more about doing than being. We have forgotten that we are to be a human being. To be is to be in the present moment, to be mindful. But we are caught up with always doing. You meet somebody, the first thing you say, how do you do? Next thing you say, why do you do? How, when do you do? What will happen if you don't do? We define ourselves by what we do. We need to define ourselves by what we are. That being is what yoga is about. So yogopathy is you are trying to do something for somebody. Instead, you need to enable them to be and to grow into the best version of themselves. That is what swasth implies. Yoga Chikitsa empowers the individual to be at ease with themselves. It is an integrated state of coherence, their own sukhasthanam, a point where they feel at ease with themselves. They are established in their own state of ease. That is the peak of wellness and health. The need of the hour is a symbiotic relationship between yoga and modern medicine. This is what is happening here in site of Sri Balaji Vidyapeeth at Pondicherry, where modern medical hospital is having this yoga therapy center. We are integrating, they are referring to us, we are referring to them, and there is this type of symbiotic relationship being created. We need human bridges, the living bridges, combining the best of both worlds. We need people who have the traditional and yet also have the scientific. A role I have played in my own life, because the people on the bank of the yoga side, they trust me as part of the yoga family. The people on the medical bank, the medical side, trust me because I am a medical doctor. And hence I become a living bridge that can communicate between the yoga path and the modern scientific path. And through me, so many can go from this side to that and that side to this. We need to become these bridges. It is not modern medicine or yoga. It can be modern medicine and yoga, which is the Indian tradition. Iti iti. You can also be right, I can also be right at the same time. Well, it also means you can be wrong and I can be wrong at the same time, but let's be positive about it. Your answer is also correct, my answer is also correct. And this is what I have taken as my approach in life, especially with regard to the various traditions of yoga that often may be saying things that seem the opposite, but in essence are one and the same. Because our Vedas tell us, Ekam Sat, Vipra Bahuda Vadanti, that the truth is one. Perceptions may vary. And Ano Badra Kritavo Yanto Vishwataha, let the noble thoughts come from all directions. Why shut yourself and say only my view is right? That is the reductionist view. We need to be open and realize there are many other views also out there. We need to focus on wholesomeness, salatogenesis, and move consciously from dukkham or suffering to sukham, which is ease. We need to move from this tendency that we as a human race have had to be ego-driven. Our ego has been, I am the top, the authoritarian, dualistic, unsustainable, unwise, imbalanced, power-seeking path. At least maybe COVID-19 can be the catalyst that will transform our perspective to the ecological version, where we realize we are part of the whole universe. The same energy that is in you and me is there in all living beings. Can't we respect each other? Can't we love each other? Can't we support each other? That is what a team is all about. Together, everyone achieves more. We, as a human being, are part of the whole team on this planet. We are not the big boss to tell others what to do or to decide what is to be done with others. Every life is to be respected, and the Mother Earth, Mother Nature, is to be respected, served with a sense of love that comes from gratitude. We as yoga therapists must make a sincere and determined attempt to strengthen the most important chain in the chain of yoga. That is our own personal every moment sadhana. Yoga is not something you do for 1 hour and do something else for 23 hours. Yoga has to be lived every moment. As the Maharishi Patanjali tells us, Atha, it is in the present moment that yoga manifests. Atha yoga anushasana. The experiential journey of yoga is in the now. Can we make our life, our sadhana, every moment sadhana, to strengthen the chain of yoga? This is our dharma, our responsibility as a yoga therapist. And when we do this, we truly become human. Because only when you live your dharma, your responsibility, your purpose, are you actually a true human being. Otherwise, you're just a human doing. I think we need to shift to being human. And my sankalpa is that may we all be blessed to do so. And that is where I end by saying Hari Om Tat Sat and expressing my thought that gratitude is the highest attitude. It is from gratitude that the sense of respect, service can come. Let us have gratitude for life. Let us have gratitude to this planet on which we live. Let us have gratitude to the universe that is sustaining our life. And when we have gratitude, we will try to repay through our seva, our selfless action. That is my sankalpa, that is my prayer for today. And I hope that we will be able to live that sankalpa and make that manifest as the reality, which is what the Vedic statement tells us. Hari Om Tat Sat. May that be the reality for all of us. Namaste.
Thank you, Bhavanani ji. It was an excellent presentation. Compliments and gratitude is pouring in. I won't be able to catch up with the long list of compliments that are coming in, but I would definitely like to read a couple of them. Before I read, I also want to tell our participants that Bhavanani ji is addressing us from the hospital where he had a lot of work, so he could take out some time. He had a meeting just before this, finished it, ran and came and started this session. That's the commitment he has both towards his work as well as to the field of yoga and the yoga community at large. So we have a message from Shri Jaishri Sriramji, who says, such a profound and earnest session. You beautifully married yoga and yoga therapy and its relevance to the needs of the current world. Pranams. Then we also have Shri Anil Kumarji, who is a regular participant. He says, real Ananda from Dr. Ananda.
I love that. I love that compliment.
And I also like to read out
that one. I love it.
So we have a friend from France who is watching, Muriel Decnograt, who says, with text and drawings, I can follow the conference. It's been really good, very, very interesting. So that's on Facebook. We have people sharing their messages across all the platforms. And the questions have just started now. The list is growing. So I'll be presenting this question to you, Dr. Bhavanani ji. So you see which one you would like to take, and because some might need a longer response, you just take a call on them. Okay. So we have a question from Dr. Balaji, who says, sir, how hospital-based yoga centers can offer the same type of yoga therapy offered in traditional yoga schools, yoga studios, etc.? Can you please highlight it? I think you're the best person to answer it because you carry the best of both the worlds. On one place, you come from an ashram, you are in an ashram, and you also work in a hospital. So is there any difference? Is the both approaches are equally valid? What do you have to say about it?
Both are very different approaches. because a hospital environment will always be disease based, not health based. And often you find that the healthcare system is more disease focused, that pathogenesis is more strong than cellulogenesis, which is why at CITER we have been trying to give more of a cellulogenic focus. We have been trying to marry the systems. It is still tough because if you ask me frankly, I think true yoga can only exist in the traditional ashrams. I don't think it can come into an academic framework and be still true yoga. It is like, we have the Vedic Gurukulams that teach the Mantra Shastra. How much ever you try in academia, it will not be the same. And it will be a pale version, an anemic version of it. Because when we realize that instruction needs a structure, the Gurukula, the ashram, is a structure in which a certain type of instruction can happen, which cannot happen when it's put into a college, a university, a school, or a hospital setup. So it is definitely going to be different. I won't say one is better than the other, because in an ashram setting, people who are chronically ill, they may come when they have mild symptoms, but in an emergency, they're not going to be there. But those emergency patients are going to be in a medical hospital. So you get a chance to take yoga to people who need it. Ultimately, we want yoga and yoga therapy to reach those who need it. Every care seeker should get it. This is the principle of inclusiveness. Nobody should be deprived of the opportunity for yoga and yoga therapy based on any human-made discrimination. Yoga doesn't believe in any form of discrimination. Yoga is one. So in that, I feel that taking it into hospitals, taking it into studios, taking it into universities is good, but each will have its strength and limitation. The hospital will focus more on healthcare. You can take an X-ray, you can do scientific research. In an ashram, you may not be able to do that. So each is valuable in its own context.
Thank you very much, Dr. Bhavanani ji. In this context, I would like to mention it to all our participants that we had a conference on philosophy and praxis of yoga organized by Indica Yoga a couple of months back in the month of February, where Dr. Bhavanani ji has given a beautiful talk on the importance of Guru Parampara in the field of yoga. How a living Guru tradition will help us to take this knowledge to people. So you must watch it. That will make a lot of sense in what connecting with what he said just now. And also, would also like you to watch. Yes, Bhavanani ji. Yeah.
Actually,
and also, like to
you please continue. Then I'll add something to it.
Okay. So, and also would like to urge you to watch a talk by Naveen Vishweshwaraya ji, who also spoke on how to integrate yoga with modern medicine, where he says how it needs to be done in a non-ashram kind of space. Like spiritual domain, we have a particular approach, but there is also other domains where yoga has to be used, harnessed for applications. How do we approach it? So it makes very clear as to how the same topic has been approached in these various sessions. Yes, Bhavanani ji.
Yeah, I just wanted to say that the connection to a living tradition is essential for yoga to manifest. Because it is like you have your electronic apparatus, you have your mobile phone, you have your laptop. Now you get it charged from an electrical source, you take it out, you can use it for some time. But after some time, it's going to get discharged of all the energy. And if you don't go and recharge it, it will be of no use. And this is what happens with yoga also. That you have got that charge, you are going out and using it. But if you are not connected to a living tradition, after some time it's going to get discharged and you will have a mobile phone that is not serving as a mobile phone anymore, a laptop that is not serving as a laptop anymore, and you move from living yoga to dead yoga, which is Jada yoga.
Thank you very much, Dr. Bhavanani ji. So I move on to the next question by Dr. Jaiprakash Gupta ji, to ask, again, Dr. Prakash Gupta is a regular follower of all the sessions. I think he's joining us from Sydney. So he asks, in your model, how do you explain congenital or hereditary conditions and how to resolve them, especially Down syndrome or other conditions like autism, etc.?
Yes. This is always a question that comes up when we talk of psychosomatics. Because people say, if stress is causing the disease, what stress did the normal newborn kid have who developed the disease, the congenital or hereditary condition? But the answer lies in that term itself, hereditary. Hereditary means genetic. So it is the genes of the parents. What are the genes of the parents? It is the lineage to which that child has been born into. And from the philosophical yogic standpoint, we call it sabija karma. That the bija karma, the seed karma, carried by the genetic structure of the family ancestors into which that family, that child has been born. So here we need to go beyond the condition of just one lifetime and understand there are many lifetimes in which this is manifesting. Because if you try any other model, it is very tough to explain. Why should a newborn child be born with a certain health condition even before anything else has happened? So when we talk of Adija Vyadhi in the Yoga Vashishta, Vashishta actually says the Sara Adija Vyadhi, the essential psychosomatic disorder is to be born again and again. And he says the only remedy is Atma Jnana, which is why you need a guru, because Atma Jnana Pradhanena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. So that Atma Jnana is the only way out of that. So we would say that Sabija Karma is one way to explain it. The second thing is that this is part of the birth-death cycle, and the goal of being human is to get out of it, which is why all living traditions in Indian culture have stressed on the need for mukti, moksha, nirvana, kaivalya, because we need to get off this wheel of dukkha. Dukkhameva sarvam vivekinaha. As Patanjali says, same thing is said by Buddha, all life is suffering. So stop suffering, stop coming back again and again. Know yourself, know the highest sense, and become one. So that is the only way. It becomes very tough. And dealing with parents who have children with hereditary issues, yoga then becomes an adjuvant, a rehabilitative methodology. And we do a lot of work with children with special needs where yoga helps a lot. So yoga is not just to be looked at curative, it is primarily preventive. Heyam dukkam anagatam. Yoga is primarily preventive. It can be adjuvant with other therapies, or in some cases on its own has management capabilities. Most of the time it is rehabilitative, restorative, and supplementary.
Thank you very much, Dr. Bhavnani ji. We addressed this question similarly in one of our earlier sessions, where we had Ms. Smita who was speaking on wellness in cancer, from surviving to thriving, where the questions were not about the cancer survivor, but also the family members, how yoga would help them.
Very true.
So sometimes it's not just addressing only the person who is going through it, but also help giving energy and strength and find that anchoring space for people around them.
That is where the yoga for caregivers, yoga for the caregiver is very important.
True.
And in fact, our department is on the same floor as the palliative ward, where people with terminal conditions come, and often our students go there. And it's not about which asana you teach, which pranayama you teach. Just being there for the person helps them so much in those last days of their life. To be, again that word be, to be with them. Not what you do, but you being, where the therapist becomes the therapy.
It actually also points towards the larger understanding of this yoga. It's being in yoga that is more important than doing yoga.
So true, so true, so true.
Thank you very much for that. I'll move on to next question by, I think it's Chokkalingamji. I'm not so sure if I'm pronouncing it proper. It's an amazing session. For therapy, the client and the others expect solutions in short time. I think this is one issue that most of the yoga therapists have to deal with. So what shall we do in such a case, especially in the cases of psychosomatic illness like insomnia and many other issues?
Actually, that is where yogopathy has a place, because yogopathy is symptomatic management. So I'm not saying yogopathy is bad, but what I'm saying, we should know it is yogopathy and not yoga chikitsa. So someone who's having insomnia, you want to help them sleep better, you need to reduce the stress. So any practice that is a stress buster,
I'm sorry, I just had. I think Dr. Bhavanani ji, your voice has been muted.
yes, fine. I will just come back on that question again because somehow we lost it.
Yes, please.
When we are dealing with people who need acute relief, for example, somebody cannot sleep, they want to sleep better, you need to use the yogopathy approach and give them some techniques that will help them rapidly. But then later on, you try to use the yoga chikitsa approach, find the cause and treat the cause. I'll give an example. We had a person who couldn't sleep, and he came to the hospital when I was working in Jipma. And he said, I haven't slept for months and months and months. We gave him Chandranadi Pranayama, left nostril breathing, which reduces the stress. We gave him a sequential relaxation. At the end of the relaxation, he started snoring. He actually was snoring at the end with one session. Recently, we had the BBC visit our hospital last year for the Royal Marigold Hotel series. And the famous cricket commentator Henry Blofeld, he was part of the team. And he did one session. At the end of it, he relaxed so well, he started snoring. And BBC shows him snoring also in that episode. And when he woke up, he said, I have never felt so relaxed in my life. And I don't remember the last time I went to sleep on my back. Now that is just one session. And we have published research that even one session of yoga is effective in many, many situations. But that is a yogopathy approach. But then you have to see, why is the person not sleeping? What is the cause of the stress? Is it family stress? Is it work-based stress? Is there a faulty pattern of living? Someone who is staying up to AM in the morning, naturally sleep is not going to come because you know what's going to happen? The biorhythms change. That is the yoga chikitsa approach.
Thank you very much, Dr. Bhavanani ji. I just take up a related questions because we are speaking about yoga therapists and issues that they might face. So this question is again from Dr. Balaji, who says, is there any chance in future yoga therapists get properly registered, like registering for at MCI body due to increase in yogopathy and prescription of yoga in current situation? And also maybe I can also ask you to speak about Indian Yoga Association, how it is trying to bring in a formal approach to all these fields.
I think there are two ways to approach this question. One is that we should not expect a yoga therapist should be treated at par with a medical doctor. A medical doctor is a medical doctor. A physiotherapist is a physiotherapist. A biotechnologist engineer is an engineer. A yoga therapist is a yoga therapist. So this idea that a yoga therapist should be equal to a doctor, why you want anybody to be equal? Each is distinct.
No, I think it's more in the sense of any formal registration process by where you know that a person is duly qualified.
Yes, actually the issue is because yoga therapy hasn't been defined properly. And this is why the Bachelor of Naturopathy and Yogic Sciences, they are going through a process of registering, and even they have struggled. Despite having a 4.5 years plus 1 year, 5.5 year pattern, they have struggled to get central registration. So who is a yoga therapist? what is an accredited yoga therapy training program? Someone does a 6-month program and says they are yoga therapists. Somebody does a 6-year program and says they are yoga therapists. So because of this, we have issues with this. And I think the one plus point is that our Indian Yoga Association is looking at how this can be taken forward. The Government of India, through the Yoga Certification Board, housed at MDNAY, has looked at yoga instructors, yoga teachers. They had the QCI model that is now YCB. And the next level that is going to come in is yoga therapist. So still, who is a yoga therapist? What will be an accepted level is there. But I think within the next 2 or 3 years, we will have a YCB yoga therapist level come in. I'm quite sure about that, which will be supported by Indian Yoga Association, which is made up of all the eminent yoga schools in India. So definitely if Indian Yoga Association and YCB levels are the same, and then now we have the Healthcare Skill Council who are creating, the skill levels for yoga therapy assistant and other things. So now yoga therapy assistant, we have created a level. Soon it will be for yoga therapy. So I would say at the most the next 5 years, I see that there will be some sort of structure. But again, the moment structure comes in, there is a danger, because the moment structure comes into anything, the life is often lost. It is often said that the moment religion got organized, God walked out. And I say the moment yoga got organized, real yoga walked out. So though I know the need for it, I am very skeptical of externalized structure, which is why the IYA, Indian Yoga Association, has positioned as a self-regulatory body for yoga. We are not having somebody regulate us. The Yoga Institute together to set standards, again, not standardize, set standards for self-regulation. So I think, yes, 3 to 5 years, there will be something, and yoga therapist will be a yoga therapist. That is what the word will be.
Thank you very much, Dr. Bhavnani ji, for introducing Indian Yoga Association for all our participants. As you all know, this is also IYA is the apex body for setting standards and for setting up standards for teacher education and many other programs in India. So it comprises of all the big institutes of our country, all under one umbrella organization called Indian Yoga Association. So I urge all of you to connect with IYA, especially all yoga organizations, institutes, yoga teachers. I urge you to connect with IYA so that we can actually give shape to this entire unfolding that is happening in the field of yoga. So moving on to our next question, Dr. Bhavnani ji. We have a question from Dr. S. Pratap Reddy, who says, if yoga is preventive in nature, why autism being Sabija Karma can't be stopped from manifesting? If it is curative, is the cure apart from rehabilitation?
See, autism has multifactorial causes. So when you say prevent autism, I don't know where you are expecting that the person is preventing. For me, the prevention starts from the parents being children. So my thing is that if you want to prevent many of these disorders, you need the young people to take up yoga. Yoga has to become part of their life, so that then the progenies that are produced by those healthy parents will have the minimum amount of Sabija Karma. But you cannot wish away Sabija Karma. Sabija Karma has to be endured, but you can endure it either with a negative, pessimistic approach or endure it with an optimistic, positive approach. There are people in the world who don't have hands and legs. And there's a guy in Australia, he was born with the thalidomide tragedy, where kids were born with seal limbs after taking that morning sickness drug. He was born without upper and lower limbs. He is a motivational speaker. He is not sitting at home saying, oh, poor me. So I think when we say yoga is preventive, there are multiple aspects. One is you have certain hereditary tendencies can you prevent them from manifesting, which is called epigenetics. Earlier we used to say if you have a genetic predisposition, you had to get it. Now we say if you have a genetic predisposition, you can still avoid it by proper lifestyle, proper perspective, proper life. So I think yoga as a preventive, there are multiple angles. But when we talk of congenital disorders, we can try to prevent it. Often people say you do yoga, you will not have a cesarean section. That is not true. Because cesarean section, as a doctor, it depends on many factors. What is your pelvic size? What is the size of the baby? Whether the baby has the umbilical cord around its head, around the neck. So many factors are there. So if you do yoga, you will have better chances of not going for an unnecessary cesarean. But there may be necessary cesareans. So you cannot say, oh, I did yoga and I had a cesarean, so yoga doesn't work. We need to understand multifactorial aspects of health and disease.
Thank you very much, Dr. Bhavanani ji, for putting things in perspective, because we generally tend to have a linear approach to things, and also fixed cause and effect understanding. Okay, if this is taken care of, everything else will be perfect. No, but as you said, that there are multiple factors which lead to a particular outcome, and to have a larger vision is extremely helpful in that context.
Karma is multidimensional. Karma is multidimensional. It is not that what I do to Vinay Chandra ji, he will do back to me. No, it's not about you and me. People say, don't kill a mosquito. You will be born as a mosquito. That mosquito will then kill you. And then you and that mosquito are in this merry-go-round of killing each other all the time. No. It is multidimensional. It is multifactorial. I think we need to really look at that and realize that, as my father would say, give and give for the sake of giving, and you will get back. But don't expect from the same person you gave that they will always give back. You will get from other people. But we are always expecting, I gave you something, did you give me back? No, that person doesn't have to. That is unidimensional, unidirectional. But karma is multidimensional, and we don't perceive how much comes back when we do something positive, because we are looking, it is like we are looking in one direction and the ship to save us is behind our back. If you don't turn, you don't know the ship is there. That ship has come to save you, but you are facing the wrong direction. Often in karma, we are facing the wrong direction because it is multi-directional, multi-dimensional. And when we open to that multi-dimensional perspective, we can start dealing with it much better. The antidote to karma is to live one's dharma.
Excellent. Thank you very much, Dr. Bhavanani ji. I just like to mention it to our participants. You should see Bhavanani ji's Facebook wall, because he has been sharing so generously for last 108 days. You can see the love that he has been receiving from people across the world, the kinds of messages, the kinds of goodwill. I think, as you were saying, like the positive act when shared, it comes back. So that's what we can see when you listen to the people who are giving their compliments to him. So thank you very much, Bhavanani ji. If I may indulge in one more personal question, you were the student and son of Guru Gitanand Ji Maharaj. So how was the experience? How was it to grow up under a teacher and a father like him? Because he is one of the big names in the field of yoga. Especially, he is also the founding member of Indian Yoga Association. Many initiatives in the field of yoga. Guru Gitanand Ji Maharaj was an instrumental personality in doing so.
I often say that, both of my parents, Swamiji and Ammaji, both are one of a kind. Both of them are like the rarest of the rare. When I think of Ammaji, the wisest woman, a true living Siddha, and I'm blessed to be born her son and be her student. My father, again, that lion of Pondicherry, who he connected to the Prajna Loka. He had a connection to the Akashic record, Akashic Rai, and that wisdom of the universe used to flow through him. When you are a kid, you often don't realize how blessed you are, how fortunate you are. So I used to think, why don't I have regular parents? Why don't I have a regular house? And I live in this ashram, which is just a space for everyone to come and go. There is no inside, no outside. Everything is one. There's no up and down. Everything is one. And Swamiji is always speaking, and Ammaji is busy. And I had lot of love. Never think that I didn't get love. I got lot of love from them. But it was like a lion cub being taught by the lion. The lion doesn't teach the lion cub easily. It gives a good swat. So I got a lot of swats, especially my egodectomies. And what I didn't realize at that time is how much by osmosis I gained by just being in the ashram. It was only when I was out of school, after my 12th standard, I said, Swamiji, I want to study with you. And I studied with him as a student in the ashram, living downstairs in the student quarters for 2 years. And that was the time where I really studied. But my whole life, by osmosis, I would be climbing the trees while he was teaching the class. I would be running around catching the monkeys while Ammaji was giving her class. And by osmosis, all of this knowledge, that is why I said the structure is so important for instruction. It is not just you can be taught something. There has to be the structure. The ashram, the Gurukula, our Anand ashram at Kamble Swami Madam was the structure in which all of these teachings were part and parcel of my upbringing. So later on, when I started to look for the teaching, I wanted to know what is this technique? What is this concept? As a young kid, I remember Amma, Yogaha Karmasu Kaushalam. Okay, what does it mean? Nothing. She said it, so I said it, like the parrot. The parrot repeats what you say. And they say, Kaikeyi's parrot. Like Kaikeyi used to say, the parrot will say. You are just the guru's parrot. Then you start to think, are you that monkey? In South India, they'll have a monkey tied and they say, Adhra Rama, Kutikarana Adhra Rama, which means the monkey will, turn somersaults and do chakrasan on the road. You wonder, are you that parrot? Are you that monkey who's just doing without knowing what you are doing? This is where, again, doing without knowing is a dangerous situation in modern yoga. We are doing without knowing. Why are you doing? For knowing what you are doing, why you are doing, how you are doing, you need to have first done, and then through the process of doing, you start to learn to be. The first part is doing, then you go into being. And so what I have found is from both of my parents is that they gave me the fortunate opportunity to learn the yoga by osmosis, the Indian music, the Sanskrit mantras. I used to be sitting on the stairs of our shrine, Kamble Swami shrine, and learning the Vedic mantras, the Rudram, the Chamakam, Gananam Tva Ganapadikum Havamahe Kavim Kabinam, all the pattern of chanting the Vedas, mantras with the proper way. All that I had to learn. On another side, the music. You are learning. On another side, the dance. Swimming, climbing, taking care of monkeys being born, monkeys dying, deer being born, deer dying. So what you have is that you understand
And
what
also
life is.
cricket. I believe you were actively playing cricket as well.
Yeah, Sachin Tendulkar is lucky I stopped playing cricket because it would have been Anand Baliyogi with the 100 centuries, not Sachin Tendulkar. Because I loved cricket so much. It was my first love. I was the opening batsman for the school, for the district. I played district level at Dindagal, and at one time thought I would become a full-time cricketer. And then I realized how fortunate my life was that as my Natya Guru, Lakshman sir, used to say, cricket is played till you are about 35 or maybe 39 if you are Dhoni. Then after that, what do you do? Whereas yoga, music, dance, this is all about life. Every breath is yoga. So from my first breath to my last breath is yoga. I was conceived by my parents in yoga. Both of my parents were practicing yoga. I was conceived very purposefully in a state of yoga. So for me, my life in yoga is my age, which is now 48, plus 9 months. So that is how long I've been in yoga in this lifetime.
Thank you very much, Dr. Bhavnani ji. You are a blessing and you bring that blessing to all of us. Thank you very much.
My wish is we should all grow and glow in yoga.
Thank you. So before I get back to you for two things, one is how can people reach out to you? How can they follow your work? And also, what would be the message that you want to share? A parting message. Of course, you have said many interesting, important things, but one parting message that you would like to share. Before that, we will just do the announcements for the evening. So this evening, we have a talk by Dina Miriam, who is the founder and key convener of the Global Peace Initiative of Women, USA. She is speaking on Vedic deities and their relevance today. It's a very interesting topic because this is the whole celebration is about wellness, and you might be curious as to know what is the role of Vedic deities in the wellness. And she'll be making this interesting connection between these two worlds, and you will all be fascinated with what you're going to hear. You have already seen and heard Dina Miriam. She has been on a couple of panels that we have already organized. She'll be again with us this evening. And I would also like to mention to all our participants that all these videos, they really need a revisiting. You might want to visit them, listen to them again and again. So kindly make them they're all available on Indica Yoga YouTube channel, on Indica Yoga website. So please connect and watch, subscribe, comment, and share. With this, we come back to you, Dr. Bhavnani. I have shared the website of ISAR and CITER. So is there any other way that participants can follow you, they can know about your work?
Actually, both the websites have most of the stuff that we need. And the simplest way to find me is just type Bhavanani Yoga, and you'll come up with my YouTube videos, 1,000 on one site and another 600 on the other. You'll have in SlideShare all my PowerPoint presentations, and tonight when I get home, this presentation will be on that for you to download if you want. You can go on Academia, all my papers are there for download. ResearchGate, all my papers are there for download. So I think at Facebook, there's the Yogacharya Dr. Anand Bhavnani page. You can like that. Sometimes I take up the friend list, but as you know, Facebook has 5,000 limit, and I keep on trying to keep it down. I love to share. I love to care. Sharing is caring. But at the same time, I also need personal space. So that is why Facebook I share a lot, YouTube I share a lot. So just type Bhavanani Yoga and you'll find a lot of stuff out there.
Thank you, Bhavanani ji. We are grateful for who you are and the generosity that you bring along. Thank you very much for that. And a message that you would like to share.
Yoga is not something to be done. Yoga is something to be lived. You need to become yoga. And if yoga therapy is to work through you, you must be the purest vehicle for that yoga through the process of therapy to reach the care seeker. And it is important to remember we are not healing anybody. We are only the conduit for the healing to occur. We are the facilitator. We are the support system for the student, for the care seeker. We are not the master. We are not the therapist. We are not God. We are just the vehicle. And the more pure the vehicle is, the more the teachings can come alive through you. And when the teachings of yoga come alive in you, you become the best you. And then we truly manifest Buddharet Atma Atmanam, as the Bhagavad Gita says, that empowerment from within, where from being a subhuman, we manifest humaneness, become that great humane being and manifest our divinity. My wish is that each and every one should live yoga, be yoga, and hopefully get to Kaivalya as soon as we can.
Thank you very much, Dr. Bhavnani. That was a very profound message to realize that we are all instruments of a larger work that's in progress. So thank you very much. And I also would like to thank all our participants who have joined from across the globe. I could see some friends from Europe, For them, it's quite early in the morning, yet they were all here listening to you. And yeah, thanks to each one of you who have joined us. Namaste
Dhanyavada.
and have a good day.